The transport ship shuddered as it broke through Earth's atmosphere. Yuna Kim pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching the blue planet grow larger beneath her. 3 years. She had been gone for 3 years, and now she was 17 years old, with a chest full of medals and a head full of nightmares. The other passengers on the ship whispered and pointed at her uniform. They recognized the solar cross pinned to her chest. Everyone knew what it meant. You only got that medal for doing something incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. In Yuna's case, it had been both. She had held a checkpoint alone for 6 hours, while 40,000 refugees escaped behind her. The Vrail had come in waves, and she had stood her ground. She survived. Many others did not. The ship landed at Seoul Spaceport with a soft thump. Yuna grabbed her small bag and walked down the ramp. Her legs felt strange on Earth's gravity after so long in space stations and colony worlds. Everything felt heavy, including her heart. Her parents waited at the arrival gate. Her mother cried the moment she saw her. Her father tried to stay strong, but his eyes were wet too. Behind them stood Timon, her younger brother. He had been 12 when she left. Now he was 15 and almost as tall as her. "You're home," her mother said, holding Yuna so tight it hurt. "You're finally home." Yuna wanted to tell her that she didn't know where home was anymore. Instead, she just nodded and hugged back. The drive to their apartment was quiet. Seoul looked the same but felt different. Or maybe Yuna was the one who had changed. The streets were crowded with people who had no idea that a war had been fought among the stars. They walked around with their phones, laughing and complaining about traffic. Normal things. Things Yuna had forgotten existed. "We've set up your old room," her father said as they pulled into the parking garage. "Everything is just how you left it." But Yuna wasn't how she left. That girl was gone. Inside the apartment, Timon followed her around like a curious puppy. "Did you really fight aliens?" he asked. "What were they like? Did you fly spaceships? Did you—" "Timon, let your sister rest," their mother interrupted gently. Yuna looked at her brother's excited face and felt a wall between them. He saw adventure and glory. She saw blood and screaming and the faces of friends who never came home. "Maybe later," she said, and went to her room. Her old posters were still on the walls. Pop stars and movie actors smiled down at her. A stuffed bear sat on her bed. She had gotten it for her 14th birthday. That person felt like a stranger now. Yuna lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Her neural implant, installed during her first month of service, pinged softly in the back of her mind. It was calculating threats, even though there were none. The apartment had 3 exits. The window could be used in an emergency. The kitchen had multiple items that could be used as weapons. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Instead, she saw Europa Station burning. The next morning, her parents sat her down at the breakfast table. Her father pushed a stack of papers toward her. "These are enrollment forms," he said carefully. "For Hanbit High School." Yuna stared at the papers. "High school? The law says all veterans under 18 must complete their education," her mother explained. "You missed 3 years. You need to go back." "I don't need high school," Yuna said flatly. "I've already done more than most adults ever will." "We know that, honey," her mother said. "But this is what the government requires. And besides, you need to adjust to normal life." Normal life. As if such a thing existed anymore. Yuna wanted to argue, but she saw the worry in her parents' eyes. They had already lost her once. She couldn't fight them on this too. "Fine," she said. "I'll go." Her first day at Hanbit High School was worse than any battle she had fought. The building was huge and loud. Students filled the hallways, shouting and laughing. They pushed past each other, complaining about homework and gossiping about who was dating whom. The noise made Yuna's implant spike with anxiety warnings. She found her classroom and sat in the back. Other students stared at her. Some whispered. Everyone knew who she was. The school had made an announcement about the honored veteran joining their class. The teacher, Ms. Park, smiled too brightly at her. "We're so glad to have you, Yuna. If you need any help catching up, just let me know." Catching up. As if 3 years of war could be made up with some textbooks and extra homework. The morning classes were confusing. Math had changed. History didn't include anything about the war she had just fought. Literature talked about old poems and stories that seemed pointless. At lunch, Yuna sat alone in the cafeteria. She positioned herself with her back to the wall, facing the entrances. Old habits. She ate quickly, efficiently, the way soldiers ate when they didn't know when their next meal would come. A group of boys walked past her table. One of them, tall with styled hair, looked at her and smirked. "Hey, aren't you the war girl?" he said loudly. "Do they serve military rations here? Or will regular food work for you?" His friends laughed. Other students turned to watch. Yuna said nothing. She had faced down alien warriors. A stupid teenager with a big mouth was nothing. But then something happened that she couldn't. Control. Someone in the cafeteria popped a balloon. The sound was sharp and sudden. Bang! Yuna's body moved before her mind could catch up. She dropped to the floor, her hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Her implant flooded her system with combat hormones. Threat detected. Find cover. Return fire. But there was no threat. Just a balloon. And now the entire cafeteria was staring at her. Laughter started small and grew louder. Students pointed and whispered. The boy with styled hair laughed hardest of all. "Wow," he said. "Maybe you should have stayed in space." Yuna stood up slowly. Her face burned with shame. This was worse than any enemy fire. This was humiliation. She walked out of the cafeteria without looking back. She found the stairs to the roof. The door was supposed to be locked, but she forced it open easily. Up here alone, she could breathe. Yuna sat on the roof edge and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, her old squad was probably doing cleanup operations. They understood her. They had seen what she had seen. Her communicator buzzed. A message from G1, her old squad mate. "Hey, Yuna. Hope Earth is treating you okay. Miss you out here." Yuna typed back, "Miss you too." But she didn't tell G1 about the cafeteria. She didn't tell anyone. She sat on that roof until the bell rang, looking at the stars and wondering how she was supposed to survive this new war. A war where the enemies were normal life, normal people, and the normal girl she was supposed to be, but could never become again. The sun set slowly over Seoul. Yuna finally stood and went back inside. This was her life now. Somehow, she had to find a way to fight through it. The second week was not easier. If anything, it was worse. Yuna discovered that being 3 years behind in school was like being dropped onto an alien planet with no translation device. Math used symbols she didn't recognize. Science talked about concepts she had missed. English literature discussed books she had never read. The only class that made sense was physical education, and even that was wrong. The other students complained about running 2 kilometers. Yuna had once marched 40 kilometers in combat gear while under enemy fire. She tried to take notes, but her mind kept wandering. While the teacher talked about ancient poetry, Yuna's implant calculated the structural weaknesses of the classroom. 3 windows. Reinforced glass. Would shatter under sustained plasma fire, but could withstand small arms. The ventilation system could be used for emergency escape. Stop it, she told herself. There is no enemy here. But her brain didn't believe her. Between classes, students traveled in groups. They had complex social rules that Yuna couldn't understand. You couldn't sit at certain tables unless you belonged to certain groups. You couldn't talk to certain people unless other people approved. There were invisible lines everywhere, and Yuna kept crossing them without knowing. She tried sitting with different groups at lunch. Each time, conversation died when she arrived. They would smile politely, then go back to talking about things she didn't understand. Dating drama. Social media posts. Some show everyone was watching. The boy from the first day, whose name was Doyun, made things worse. He seemed to enjoy making comments whenever he saw her. "Make sure you don't attack anyone today," he would say. Or, "Careful, don't let the lunch lady surprise you." His friends always laughed. Yuna knew she could hurt him badly. She had killed things far more dangerous than one stupid teenager. But that was the problem. She couldn't just use force to solve problems anymore. This wasn't war. These weren't enemies. They were just cruel kids, and she had to somehow exist in their world. On Thursday, someone approached her. Yuna was sitting alone in the library, trying to understand a history assignment. The book talked about the beginning of space colonization, but it didn't mention the war at all. It was like the last 3 years had been erased from the official story. "You look lost," a voice said. Yuna looked up. A girl stood there, thin and quiet, with long black hair and paint stains on her hands. She held a notebook covered in sketches. "I'm fine," Yuna said automatically. "No, you're not," the girl said simply. She sat down without being invited. "I'm Haijin. You're Yuna, right? The one everyone whispers about." Yuna waited for the usual questions. What was the war like? Did you kill anyone? Are you crazy now? But Haijin just opened her notebook. "I missed a lot of school last year because I was sick. I know what it's like to be behind. I have notes from all the classes we're in together. You can copy them if you want." Yuna stared at her. "Why would you help me?" Haijin shrugged. "Because you look like you need help. And because everyone else is being stupid about you." For the first time since coming back, Yuna felt something like relief. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet," Haijin said. "Mrs. Han's history class is really hard. We should study together." They started meeting in the library after school. Haijin didn't ask about the war. She didn't treat Yuna like a hero or a freak. She just helped her with schoolwork and talked about normal things. Her art, her favorite music. Simple things that somehow made Yuna feel a little more human. But the problems didn't stop in the third week. Doyun escalated. During lunch, Yuna had a moment. Someone dropped a metal tray, and the clang made her freeze. For just a second, she was back on Europa Station, hearing the sound of hull breaches. Her hands shook. She couldn't move. Doyun saw it. He took a picture. By the end of the day, it was everywhere. Social media. School chat groups. The picture of Yuna frozen in fear with a caption. "When the cafeteria runs out of military rations, LOL." Hundreds of students saw it, shared it, laughed at it. Yuna sat in the bathroom stall and stared at her phone. Her hands trembled, but not from fear now. From rage. She could find Doyun. She could make him understand what real fear felt like. She knew exactly how much pressure it took to break a human bone. She knew where to hit to cause maximum pain without permanent damage. The thoughts came easily. Too easily. No, she told herself. That's not who I am anymore. That's not who I can be. But wasn't it? Wasn't that exactly who she was? A weapon trained to hurt and kill? She stayed in that bathroom until the school day ended. Haijin found her walking home alone. "I saw the post," she said quietly. "I reported it. A bunch of us did." "It doesn't matter," Yuna said. Everyone already saw it. Doyan is an idiot, Haijin said firmly. He does this to everyone. Last year, he made another girl cry so much she transferred schools. He's just a bully. I've faced worse than bullies, Yuna said. I know, Haijin said. But that doesn't make this hurt less, does it? Yuna stopped walking. No one had said that to her before. Everyone assumed that because she had survived a war, normal problems shouldn't bother her. But Haijin understood. Sometimes small cuts hurt more than big wounds because you don't expect them. No, Yuna admitted. It doesn't. They walked together in silence for a while. I have some friends, Haijin said eventually. They're good people. Not like Doyon and his group. Would you want to eat lunch with us tomorrow? Yuna thought about it. Part of her wanted to stay alone. It was safer that way. But another part, a small part she thought had died in the war, wanted to try. Okay, she said the next day. Things got worse before they got better in history class. Mr. Choi was teaching about the colonial expansion period. He put up pictures of early settlements. Then he showed a slide about the war. Yuna's vision tunneled. The classroom disappeared. Suddenly, she was back on Europa Station. The alarms were screaming. Jiwoo was bleeding in her arms. Tell my mom, Jiwoo was saying. Tell her I was brave. But Jiwoo hadn't been brave at the end. None of them had. They had been terrified children playing at being soldiers, and they had died screaming. Tell her, Jiwoo said again, and her eyes went empty. Yuna? Someone was shaking her shoulder. Yuna blinked. She was in the classroom. Students were staring. Mr. Choi looked concerned. Do you need to step outside? He asked gently. Yuna stood up fast, her chair falling backward. She ran from the room. She made it to the bathroom before she threw up. The door opened. Haijin came in. She didn't say anything. She just wet some paper towels and handed them to Yuna. Then she sat on the floor next to her. I'm broken, Yuna said. It was the first time she had said it out loud. No, Haijin said. You're hurt. That's different. I don't know how to do this, Yuna said. I don't know how to be normal. Maybe you don't have to be normal, Haijin said. Maybe you just have to be you. And maybe that's enough. Yuna wanted to believe that, but she didn't know if it was true. That night, lying in bed, Yuna checked her messages. There was one from her old squad's group chat. 3 of their names were now marked with memorial icons. They had come home. They had survived the war. And then they had killed themselves. Yuna stared at those icons for a long time. She understood why they did it. Coming home was harder than fighting. At least in battle, you knew who the enemy was. At least in battle, your pain had a purpose. Here, there was just this. School, bullies, confusion. A world that didn't understand and didn't want to understand. Yuna closed her eyes, but didn't sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about those 3 names. 3 friends who had survived aliens and warfare, but couldn't survive peace. Would she be next? The question scared her more than any battle ever had. Midterm exams were coming. Yuna had been in school for 5 weeks, and she was failing almost everything. Her parents tried to be understanding, but she could see the worry in their eyes. Every evening, her father would ask about her grades. Every evening, she would say she was working on it. But the truth was, she couldn't focus. The material made no sense. Her brain was trained for tactics and survival, not poetry analysis and mathematical formulas she had never learned. She studied late into the night. When her eyes grew heavy, she took the same stimulant pills she had used during long combat missions. They were supposed to be illegal for civilian use, but Yuna had brought some back with her, just in case. Now she took them every night, just to stay awake and study. Her hands shook from too much caffeine and too little sleep. Her implants sent warning signals that she ignored. She had to pass these exams. She had to prove she could do this one normal thing, but nothing stuck in her memory. She would read a page and immediately forget what it said. Her mind kept wandering to Europa Station, to the faces of the dead, to the 3 memorial icons in her squad chat. Not at lunch now. She sat with Haijin and her friends. There was Minho, who spent every spare moment playing video games on his phone. And Sora, who wanted to be a journalist and always asked too many questions about everything. They were nice to her. They didn't treat her like she was broken or special. But Yuna still felt like an outsider looking in at a world she couldn't quite reach. "You look terrible," Minho said one day, glancing up from his game. "When did you last sleep?" "I sleep enough," Yuna lied. "No, you don't," Haijin said quietly. "You have dark circles under your eyes, and your hands are shaking." "I'm fine," Yuna insisted. SOR leaned forward. "You know, for someone who's supposed to be tough, you're really bad at accepting help." Yuna wanted to argue, but she was too tired. The cafeteria was too loud. Everything was too much. On Tuesday, Mr. Choi asked her to stay after class. He was the history teacher, older, with gray in his hair. He waited until the other students left before speaking. "I served," he said simply. 20 years ago, in the Colonial Defense Force. I recognize what I see in you." Yuna said nothing. "You're drowning," Mr. Choi continued. "And you think you have to do it alone. But you don't. I can tutor you, help you catch up. If you want." "Why?" Yuna asked. "Because someone helped me once," he said. "And because I know what happens when soldiers don't get help. I've been to too many funerals." Yuna felt something crack inside her chest. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "Then we'll figure it out together," Mr. Choi said. They started meeting twice a week after school. Mr. Choi was patient. He explained things simply. He didn't make her feel stupid when she didn't understand. Slowly, some of the materials started making sense, but it wasn't enough. The school held an assembly on Friday. They were celebrating the top students, the ones with perfect grades and bright futures. Everyone clapped for them. The principal talked about excellence and achievement. Do-Yun was one of the students called to the stage. He smiled and waved. His parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. As he walked back to his seat, he passed by Yuna. His friends were with him. One of them whispered something. Do-Yun laughed. Then, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, Do-Yun said, "Hey, Yuna, we should thank you for your service. You know, for keeping us safe so we could actually succeed at school." His friends laughed. Other students turned to look. Something in Yuna snapped. She stood up. The assembly hall grew quiet. "You want to know about my service?" Yuna said. Her voice was calm but cold. "I'll tell you. I held a position while 40,000 people evacuated. The Vrail came in waves. I watched my friends die. I held Ji-Woo while she bled out. She was 16. She made me promise to tell her mother she was brave, but she wasn't. She was terrified. She cried for her mom. The hall was completely silent now. I killed things," Yuna continued. "I saw children burned alive. I smelled human flesh cooking. I had to sort body parts to identify the dead because there weren't enough whole bodies left. So yes, I kept you safe. I kept all of you safe so you could sit here and worry about your grades and your social media posts and who's dating who." Her voice didn't rise. That made it worse. "You're welcome," she said finally. Then she walked out. Behind her, no one spoke. No one moved. Haijin caught up with her in the parking lot. "That was ... double quotes," she started. "Stupid," Yuna finished. "That was stupid. I was going to say honest, Haijin said. But yeah, also maybe stupid. Minho and Sora found them a few minutes later. They didn't try to tell her it would be okay. They just sat with her until her parents came to pick her up. That night, Yuna couldn't sleep at all. She paced her room. Her implant was going crazy, flooding her with stress hormones. Everything felt wrong. The walls were too close. The air was too thick. She couldn't breathe. At midnight, she left her room and went to the apartment building's roof. Soul spread out below her, lights glittering in the darkness. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, people were still fighting, still dying. And she was here, failing at the simple task of being a normal teenager. She stood at the edge of the roof and looked down. 12 floors. It would be quick. She thought about the 3 memorial icons in her squad chat. They had chosen this. Maybe they had been right. Maybe this was easier than trying to survive in a world that didn't want them anymore. Yuna? She turned. Timin stood in the roof doorway, holding his phone. He looked scared. What are you doing up here? He asked quietly. I couldn't sleep, she said. Neither could I, he said. He walked over and sat down, his legs hanging over the edge. After a moment, Yuna sat next to him. They were quiet for a long time. I don't know what you went through, Timin finally said. And I know I can't understand it. But you're still my sister. And I need you here. Mom and Dad need you here. We already lost you once. We can't lose you again. I'm not the sister you remember, Yuna said. I know, Timin said. But you're still my sister. Maybe you're different now. That's okay. I'm different too. I'm not the little kid you left behind. We both changed. But we're still family. He leaned his head on her shoulder. I'm failing everything, Yuna said. I can't do this. Then fail, Timin said simply. Fail and try again. That's what normal people do. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be here. Yuna felt tears on her face. She hadn't cried since coming home. She hadn't let herself. But now, sitting on a roof with her little brother, she finally did. They stayed there until the sun started to rise. The next Monday, something unexpected happened. Yuna arrived at school to find Yoonji, the student council president, waiting by her locker. Yoonji was one of those perfect students who everyone liked. Smart, pretty, kind. The kind of person who lived in a completely different world than Yuna. Can we talk? Yoonji asked. Yuna nodded warily. They went to an empty classroom. Yoonji pulled out a folder full of papers and articles. I'm doing a project on veteran reintegration, she said. I've been researching it for weeks. The numbers are terrible. Suicide rates, unemployment, mental health problems. No one talks about it. No one helps. She looked at Yuna. What you said at the assembly, ... It was raw and harsh, but it was true. People need to hear it. Not like that, maybe. But they need to understand. What are you asking? Yuna said. I want to create an awareness project, Yoonji said. About young veterans like you. About what you face when you come home. Would you be willing to help? To tell your story properly? Yuna thought about the 3 memorial icons. About other veterans out there who felt as alone as she did. I'll think about it, she said. For the first time in weeks, she felt something that might have been hope. Yuna took 3 days to decide. She met with Yoonji again on Thursday after school. I'll do it, Yuna said. But I have rules. No pity. No making me look like a hero or a victim. Just the truth. Yoonji nodded seriously. Deal. When can we start? They started that afternoon. Yoonji had arranged a small room in the library. Haijin came too, bringing her sketchbook. Minho showed up with his laptop. Sora brought a camera, and recording equipment. What is this? Yuna asked. A team, Yunji said simply. You can't do this alone. I'll handle the organization and presentation. Haijin is going to create artwork. Minho will design the interactive elements and digital presentation. Sora will help with the narrative structure and documentation. And you'll tell us what we need to know. Yuna looked at them. These people barely knew her. They had no reason to help. But here they were. Okay, she said. Let's start. They met every day after school for 2 weeks. Yuna talked, and they listened. She told them about training, about her first combat mission, about the friends she made and lost. She explained what it felt like to come home to a world that had moved on without her dot. It was hard. Some days she had to stop because the memories were too much. But her team was patient. They didn't push. They just waited until she was ready to continue. Haijin drew scenes from Yuna's descriptions. Not gruesome war images, but emotional ones. A soldier sitting alone. Empty chairs in a transport ship. A girl looking at stars through a window. Her art captured feelings that words couldn't express. Minho created an interactive timeline showing the contrast between what happened in space and what happened on Earth during those 3 years. While Yuna fought battles, students here worried about exams. While her friends died, people complained about traffic. It wasn't meant to make anyone feel guilty. It just showed the disconnect. Sora helped Yuna organize her thoughts into a clear narrative. She taught her how to tell the story. In a way, people could understand without drowning them in military jargon or graphic details. Yunji coordinated everything and arranged for a special assembly. Mr. Choi helped too. He shared his own experience of returning from service. He explained to Yuna that her anger was normal, that her struggles were not weakness, that healing took time. You're doing something important, he told her. Not just for other veterans. For everyone. People need to understand that war doesn't end when the fighting stops. The day of the presentation arrived. Yuna stood backstage, her heart pounding. This was different than combat. In combat, she knew what to do. Here, she was vulnerable. She was sharing pain instead of hiding it. You've got this, Haijin said, squeezing her hand. The auditorium was packed. Students filled every seat. Teachers stood along the walls. Even the principal was there. Yung went first, explaining the purpose of the project. Then Minho's presentation started, showing the timeline on a large screen. Students gasped as they saw what had been happening in space. While they lived their normal lives, Haijin's artwork appeared next. The images were powerful and emotional. Some students looked away. Others leaned forward, seeing perhaps for the first time what war actually meant. Then it was Yuna's turn. She walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. Hundreds of faces looked at her. She thought about running. But then she thought about the 3 memorial icons, about other veterans struggling alone. This wasn't about her anymore. My name is Yuna Kim, she began. I'm 17 years old. 3 years ago, I was 14 and stupid enough to think war would be an adventure. Today, I'm going to tell you what it was really like. She talked for 20 minutes. She told them about training that was designed to break children and rebuild them as soldiers. About the first time she killed something and how she threw up afterward. About making friends with people who might die tomorrow. About losing those friends and having to keep fighting anyway. She told them about coming home and not knowing how to function. About flashbacks that made her relive the worst moments over and over. About feeling like an alien in her own world. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad, she said. I'm telling you this because other veterans are struggling too. They come home and no one understands. They feel alone. Some of them don't survive. 3 of my friends killed themselves after coming home. They survived the war, but couldn't survive the peace. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I don't want your pity. I don't want you to treat me like I'm special or broken. I just want you to understand. When you see someone struggling, maybe they're fighting battles you can't see. Maybe they need help, but don't know how to ask for it. Be kind. Be patient. Sometimes that's all it takes to save a life. She finished. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Mr. Troy stood up and started clapping. Slowly, others joined him. The applause grew until the whole auditorium was standing. Yuna saw tears on some faces. She saw understanding on others. And in the back, she saw Do-yeon. He wasn't clapping. But he wasn't smirking either. He looked thoughtful, maybe even ashamed. After the assembly, things changed. Students approached her differently. Some thanked her for sharing her story. Others apologized for not understanding before. A few admitted they had family members who were veterans and they hadn't realized what they might be going through. The presentation was recorded and shared online. It went viral quickly. News stations wanted interviews. Other schools asked if they could use the presentation. Veterans from across the country sent messages thanking Yuna for speaking up. You've started something, Yoonji said, showing Yuna the flood of responses. People are talking about veteran support programs. Politicians are proposing new policies. You made a difference. But Yuna felt overwhelmed. She had shared her story to help a few people. Now millions were watching. The attention was too much. She had a panic attack in the bathroom on Wednesday. Heijin found her and helped her breathe through it. This is too much, Yuna gasped. I can't handle all this attention. Then don't, Heijin said. You did your part. Let other people carry it forward now. That night, Yuna met with a therapist that Mr. Troy had recommended. The therapist was an older woman who had worked with veterans for decades. You've been carrying survivor's guilt, the therapist said after listening to Yuna's story. You feel like you don't deserve to live when your friends died. They were better than me, Yuna said. Braver, smarter. Why did I survive and not them? Maybe there's no reason, the therapist said gently. Maybe it was just chance. Bad luck for them? Good luck for you. But you surviving doesn't dishonor them. Living fully honors them. They would want you to live. How do I do that? Yuna asked. One day at a time, the therapist said. Some days will be hard. Some will be better. You'll have setbacks. But you keep going. That's all healing is. Just keep going. It wasn't a magic solution. Yuna still had nightmares. She still had flashbacks. But she started learning how to manage them. Breathing exercises. Grounding techniques. Talking to people instead of hiding. On Friday, Do-yeon approached her in the hallway. He looked uncomfortable. Can we talk? He asked. Yuna wanted to say no. But she was trying to be better, so she nodded. They went outside, away from other students. I'm sorry, Do-yeon said. He didn't look at her. For everything I said and did. I was. My cousin served. He came back different. It scared me. I didn't know how to deal with it, so I made jokes. I was stupid. Yes, you were, Yuna said. I deleted the photo, Do-yeon continued, and I reported everyone who shared it. It's mostly gone now. Yuna studied him. He seems genuine. Why the change? Your presentation, he said. You talked about your friend Ji-woo. She was the same age as my cousin when he enlisted. I never thought about what he might have gone through. I was just angry that he wasn't the same person anymore when he came back. He probably isn't, Yuna said. War changes you. You can't go through that and stay the same. I know that now, Doyan said. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. It doesn't fix anything, Yuna agreed. But it's a start. They didn't become friends, but they reached an understanding. Sometimes that was enough. That weekend, Yuna received a message on her encrypted military communicator. It was from Coalition Command. They were offering her a position, training new defense forces. Leadership role, good pay, a chance to use her skills. She stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately. It would be easier. She would be with people who understood her. She would have a clear purpose again. But then she looked around her room. At the textbooks she was slowly learning to understand. At the photos on her wall of her new friends. At a drawing Haijin had made for her. She had started building something here. It was messy and hard, and sometimes painful. But it was hers. She didn't delete the message. But she didn't respond either. Not yet. The message from Coalition Command waited in Yuna's inbox for 3 days. She opened it, read it, closed it. Opened it again. The offer was good. Too good to ignore. They wanted her to train the next generation of defense forces. She would be teaching combat tactics, survival skills, leadership. Everything she was good at. Everything that made sense to her. You've been quiet, her mother said at dinner on Tuesday. Is everything okay? Yuna pushed rice around her plate. The military contacted me. They want me back. The silence that followed was heavy. Her father put down his chopsticks. Timin stopped eating. What did you tell them? Her mother asked carefully. Nothing yet, Yuna said. But you want to go, her father said. It wasn't a question. I don't know, Yuna admitted. Part of me does. It would be easier. I know how to be a soldier. I don't know how to be ... this. A daughter? Her mother said quietly. A sister? A student? A person? The words hurt because they were true. I'm not good at this, Yuna said. I'm failing classes. I have panic attacks. I'm broken here. You're not broken, Timin said fiercely. You're healing. That's different. We can't stop you, her father said. You're old enough to make your own choices. But if you go back, we lose you again. Maybe not physically this time, but we still lose you. Yuna wanted to argue, but she couldn't. They were right. That night, she talked to Haijin on the phone. What should I do? Yuna asked. I can't tell you that, Haijin said. But I can tell you that running away doesn't solve anything. I tried it when I was sick. I wanted to drop out of school, hide at home, give up. But hiding didn't make me better. Facing things did. This is different, Yuna said. Is it? Haijin asked. You're scared. That's okay. But don't let fear make your decisions. Yuna didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she wanted. What she really wanted, underneath all the fear and confusion. She wanted to matter. She wanted purpose. But did that purpose have to be war? The answer came unexpectedly. 3 days later, it was Saturday morning. Yuna was at home studying when the news alert came through. A refugee transport ship had malfunctioned during atmospheric entry. It was carrying veteran families being relocated. The ship made an emergency landing on the outskirts of Seoul, but there were injuries. Many injuries. Emergency services were overwhelmed. They needed help. Yuna was out the door before she even thought about it. She arrived at the crash site to find chaos. The ship had come down in a field. People were scattered everywhere, crying, bleeding, scared. Ambulances were arriving, but there weren't enough. Not nearly enough. Yuna's training kicked in automatically. She assessed the situation, prioritized. Her implant provided data and calculations. She called to a group of teenagers who were standing around looking shocked. They were from a nearby school, drawn by the commotion. "I need you here, now." They came. Something in her voice made them obey. "We're setting up a triage station," Una said, pointing. "You three clear that area. You two start gathering clean water and any first aid supplies you can find. You," she pointed at a boy with a phone, "call your friends. We need more people." Within minutes, she had organized them. She taught them basic triage, how to stop bleeding, how to keep people calm. They worked like a unit, following her commands. More students arrived. Word spread fast on social media. Soon there were dozens of teenagers helping under Yuna's direction. That's when she saw them. Minho running up with his phone. "I saw the news." "What do you need?" "Drones," Una said immediately. "Can you operate drones?" "I play drone racing games," Minho said. "Close enough?" "Good enough. We need aerial views to find anyone who might be further out." "Go." Minho ran off, already calling friends with drones. Haijin appeared next, calm and steady. "Put me where you need me." Una sent her to help with the children. Haijin had a gentle way about her that helped calm the scared kids. SORA showed up with a group from the journalism club. "Don't record the injured," Una told her, "but document what we're doing. We need to show that the response is organized so people don't panic." Even Yoonji arrived, bringing members of the student council. "We raided the school's emergency supplies," she said. "Tell us where everything goes." For 3 hours, Una commanded a force of student volunteers. She set up supply lines, organized transport to hospitals, coordinated with emergency services. Her implant processed information faster than normal humans could, and she used that advantage. Doyan appeared near the end. He looked uncertain. "Can I help?" Una pointed to a family struggling with luggage. "Help them. And there's an old man over there who can't walk. Get him to an ambulance." He nodded and went to work. As the sun set, the professional emergency teams took over fully. The wounded were all accounted for. No one had died. The student volunteers had made the difference. A fire chief approached Una. "I don't know who you are, kid, but you just coordinated a disaster response better than some of my veterans." "Thank you." Una looked around at her tired friends, at the students who had worked alongside her, at the families they had saved, and she realized something. She had used her skills, her training, her ability to lead and make quick decisions. But she hadn't needed to hurt anyone. She had protected people without firing a weapon. Her talents didn't have to be tools of war. They could be tools of peace too. That night, back home, her family waited for her. They had seen the news coverage. They had seen her organizing the rescue. "You were amazing," Timin said. "I was just doing what needed to be done," Una said. "That's what leaders do," her father said quietly. "They see what needs to be done, and they do it." Una sat at her computer. She opened the message from Coalition Command and began to type her response. She declined the position, but she made a counteroffer. She would work with them part-time on veteran reintegration programs. She would help train people, but train them to come home, not just to fight. She would be a bridge between military and civilian life, and she would finish school. The response came back within an hour. Accepted. The next months were not easy. Una still struggled with classes. She still had nightmares. But she also had purpose now, and friends, and a future that wasn't just about survival. She started a support group for young veterans at her school. Other schools copied the idea. She worked with Mr. Choi to develop a curriculum about veteran issues. She gave talks at different schools, each one getting a little easier. Haijin's artwork was exhibited at a gallery downtown. Half the proceeds went to veteran support programs. Sora's documentary about young veterans was accepted to a film festival. Yoonji organized the first inter-school veteran support summit. Even Doyeon changed. He started volunteering at a veterans center where his cousin was getting treatment. He wasn't Yuna's friend exactly, but they had reached an understanding dot, and slowly Yuna learned to live again. Not to forget, not to completely heal, but to live. 6 months after returning to Earth, Yuna sat in the school cafeteria with her friends. Minho was showing them a new game. Haijin was sketching. Sora was editing video on her laptop. Yoonji was organizing another project, and Yuna was laughing. Actually laughing at one of Minho's terrible jokes. Teemin joined them, excited. He had been accepted into a pre-med program. He wanted to be an emergency doctor. Yuna's example had inspired him. "I'm proud of you," she told him. "I'm proud of you too," he said. "You survived a war. And then you survived coming home. That's even harder." Through the cafeteria window, Yuna could see the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Somewhere up there, people were still fighting. The universe was still dangerous, but she had found her place. Not as a soldier, not as a normal student, but as something in between. A bridge, a leader, a person who had seen the worst of what humans could face and chose to help others face it too. A new student entered the cafeteria. He was thin and moved carefully, like someone who expected danger. His eyes scanned the room, calculating exits and threats. Yuna recognized that look. She had worn it herself not so long ago. The boy sat alone in a corner, his back to the wall. Yuna stood up. Her friends looked at her questioningly. "Be right back," she said. She walked over to the new student's table. He tensed as she approached. "Mind if we sit?" she asked, gesturing to her friends who were already gathering their things. "You look like you could use some company." The boy looked up at her. His eyes were haunted, carrying weights too heavy for someone so young. But in Yuna's eyes, he saw something familiar, recognition, understanding. "You were military," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I was," Yuna confirmed. "And I know what you're feeling right now. Like you don't belong here. Like no one understands. Like surviving the war was easier than surviving this." He nodded slowly. "It gets better," Yuna said, sitting down without waiting for permission. Her friends joined her, creating a circle around the table. "Not easier, but better. And you don't have to do it alone." The boy looked at all of them. Normal students with normal lives. And one girl who had fought among the stars and somehow found her way back to humanity. "I'm Yuna," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Hanbit High School. Let me tell you how to survive it." He took her hand. "I'm Junho," he said, "and I could really use some help." Yuna smiled. It was a real smile, not the fake ones she had worn for months. Because she had found her new mission. Not fighting wars in space. Not trying to be normal. But this, helping others who were lost find their way home. She had survived galactic warfare. She had survived high school, becoming her nightmare. And now she was learning to thrive one day at a time, one person at a time. The universe was vast and dangerous. But here on Earth, in this cafeteria, with these friends, Yuna had discovered something the military never taught her. Peace was worth fighting for too. And sometimes the bravest thing a warrior could do was learn to put down their weapons and simply live. Her war wasn't over. It would probably never be completely over. But she had learned to fight it differently, with compassion instead of violence, with community instead of isolation, with hope instead of just survival. And that, Yuna realized as she sat with her friends and the new lost soldier she would help find his way, was the most human thing of all. The story didn't end with victory or defeat. It ended with continuation. With tomorrow and the next day, and all the days after that. With choosing life again and again, even when it was hard. That was the real battle. And Una Kim was finally learning how to win it.